Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Bow Wow Bill live stream. I've got Kimberly with me, and as always, give me 1 second here, and let me share this on my personal page. I'm going to share it on a couple groups as well. Kimberly, how the heck are you?
I'm doing great. How the heck are you?
I'm doing awesome. Doing better now that I found out that you live like right around the corner from me.
I know, right? That is just like insane. Small, talk about small world.
Yeah, I was just asking her right when we were getting started, where in the world are you? And she's all Marysville, Washington, which is literally, I mean, the next town over from
Yeah,
me. And
exactly. I
and
mean,
so,
I can literally walk to Arlington from where I am. It's
well, I
just,
don't know about that.
I can. I could do it.
Take
Yeah,
a
I
couple
can do
hours.
it. I could do it. Yeah, I could just go down on the Centennial Trail.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know?
Yeah, absolutely. I gotta spend more time on the Centennial Trail. I gotta go
Then I'll call my
spend.
boyfriend and tell him come pick me up so I
Yeah,
don't
totally. I'd be like, what the heck are you doing out there?
have
All right, so here I'm sharing on my personal page here, and let me share on a couple groups. So tell everybody, Kimberly, what do you do in the dog arena?
Sure. I am a content creator. I'm, a dog nutrition blogger. I write about feeding my dogs a raw diet. I started blogging back in 2009, but I started writing about my dogs at the end of 2011. And in 2014, a year after I switched to raw, I started writing about raw feeding for dogs. And so,
And
yeah, I write about it. I write books about it. I talk to people about it. I teach workshops about it.
what got you involved with the subject?
My dog Rodrigo, he had a long list of, health issues. He had allergies, skin issues, joint issues, chronic ear infections, chronic digestive issues, and behavioral issues, which, back then I didn't know that had to do with diet. And of course, today, it makes sense. If I eat a diet of junk food, steadily for a few days, I start getting on edge and agitated. So he was eating a diet where he was constantly inflamed. So that wasn't helping him. And we went back and forth to the vet, try to figure everything out. And he was constantly on antibiotics, which was making it worse, which I
Yeah.
didn't understand back then. I kept changing his food, not understanding that it wasn't the protein, it was the diet, period. And I kept hearing about raw feeding. And it's funny because we had some friends that told me, oh, yeah, just take a chicken and throw it in the yard and that's all you do. And I was just like, I don't think that's it. I think it's a little more complicated. So I contacted a veterinarian that has helped me. She had helped me in the past on blog posts and asked her. I knew she was a proponent of raw and home cooking. And she just sort of explained the basics to me. And I just kept researching it. And it was so complicated. It's funny when I meet people who say, oh, yeah, I just started feeding raw and it was easy, no big deal. And I'm just sort of like, wow, because it was hard to find information. One day I would research something, the next day I would find the exact opposite of what I had learned. People in the groups were really intense. And it's at the time I wasn't very good with social media and, having that thick skin. So I was constantly like offended by the aggressiveness of people. Whereas now when people are like that, I'm just like, whatever. And but yeah, it was really hard to do. And I figured if I was having these troubles, other people were probably having trouble too. So I started writing about, it was actually April of 2014. I did, raw feeding from A to Z. And every day I devoted to a letter of the alphabet and just shared my thoughts. And
Interested in this subject, and there's so many different camps on it. I mean, as far as the food that you can make yourself, you can have additives that you can add to the meat. What meat? Protein poisoning, I've heard of. Where the meat that we eat is like basically modified to get the biggest muscles, and that's
yeah,
not necessarily good for dogs. And So I'm interested in this topic very, very much so. And if you guys are listening, we have 13 live viewers now, and thank you for joining us. If you have any questions regarding diet, feel free to type them in the comments below, and we'll see if we can get to them during our talk today. And if we look, I was in Denver recently, and I drove by the Purina plant, and man, the smell that was permeated from that building, I mean, for almost a mile around, and I was just like, man, this just doesn't smell good. And when you look at the ingredients that are introduced into the dog food that are meant to keep it shelf stable, there's no real biological free lunches here, folks. There's an effect that it's having, and it might be accumulative, and in some dogs it might affect much more greater than other dogs, and we see it manifest in a number of different problems.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's interesting because I think in the beginning, I would have probably still been on a kibble diet had I just known little things like, adding fresh food and adding, like, I remember I was thinking about this a couple days ago, how we used to think that if you fed your dog table scraps, it would give them worms. And it's like, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But people would say that, or people would, say if you give your dog a sweet, it would give them worms. And it's like, again, makes no sense. Granted, you shouldn't be giving your dog donuts like I did the other day, but it's just like the misinformation we've been dealing with. And, when I brought home Rodrigo and Sydney 8 years ago, I went to the store, and the only things I knew was that, get a high quality kibble, is going to be on an upper shelf, and it was going to have meat as the first ingredient. And I thought I was knocking it out of the park. I didn't know that, chicken, some dogs have a problem with chicken. I didn't know about that. It was hard for dogs to digest synthetic vitamins. And, there are just so many things that I didn't get. I just, and I don't blame myself. I don't blame my veterinarian even. He didn't know. I mean, he was coming out of a school and at a time when kibble was perfectly fine. And to be honest, I mean, we have to ask ourselves, I don't know how old kibble is, 50, 60, 70 years. But, when they first started making kibble, granted, they made kibble, I think it was because of the war. They needed the aluminum, so they started making kibble instead of canned food. But I bet you the quality of it was a lot better than it is today. So whenever I see people say, well, my dogs have been, I've been feeding Purina for 20, 30 years. And it's like, 20, 30 years ago, it was probably a better food. But today it's like, as these companies start figuring out how to cut corners, they have, what is it? A board of directors and shareholders to satisfy. And it's not in their best interest, I don't think, for them to feed, to provide a high quality kibble or product. And we also are dealing with dogs that are generation after generation of poorly fed, poorly bred dogs. And they're just not healthy. One of my dreams is to get a puppy from a breeder who only feeds raw. But you still need to get a puppy that's like second, third, fourth generation raw fed, because you need to breed all of the bad stuff out of our dogs. So, I mean, there's no easy answer to any of it. It's just a matter of, at least we have the information now. Thank God for the internet, because even though it can be hard to muddle through all the information out there, it's there. And as long as you can find, a good group of people who are willing to, help you through it, you're golden.
That's right. Well, and truth stands on its own. And that's what this does is, in the age of information, being ignorant is a choice. And we have these tools that allow us to break down these barriers that were set up that would hide information, that would give us, a pattern that might make us change our behavior. And when we see and how much people love their dogs and how much I love my dogs, I mean, what would you give to have an extra couple of years with that animal? And that's where, when feeding premium food, when it costs a lot more money, it's like, okay, cool. My dog's worth it. Yeah. But even the premium food, you find out, even the name brands of Origin and Akana, they ran into some trouble recently with some, I think, arsenic or something like that.
And now they're being purchased by Purina. And, right. It's just like,
I mean, these I remember when I was building a business, dogcoach.com, and I was trying to get these advertisers, and I found out that most of these companies are owned. I mean, Mars owns like
Oh, I know.
Wheaties and all these big companies. It's owned by a candy company.
Yes, yes. And I saw a news article. This was like a couple years ago, where a Skittles truck, and it was like all the Skittles that they throw away because for some reason the S wasn't on it right, or the color wasn't exactly right, and it broke, and there were Skittles all over the road, and they found out the Skittles were on their way to a cow farm because they were just going to mix it into the feed.
Hmm.
And it's just like, this is what's out there. And again, I think when I first started feeding raw, I compare it to people who, stop smoking. You become, or find religion. You just become super passionate and you want to save everyone around you. And
Yeah.
that's how I was. I was just like, you should do this too. Look at my dog, so healthy. And,
It's so
there's no
shaggy.
room for kibble in my world. And, I've since changed that because, unfortunately, and here in the Pacific Northwest, we have so many resources, just so many. In fact, on the way home today, I stopped and picked up chicken eggs and quail eggs just from random people in Marysville.
Yep.
And, I can do that all day, every day. I can get exactly what I need, just put an ad out or respond to an ad on, the Facebook marketplace. It's out there because we have so much, so many options. They're affordable. It's a great place to feed raw. But there are people who are in other parts of the country where, they don't have that option. So the only option they have is kibble. And then maybe they don't have a budget for these expensive brands. There's one kibble, if I were to feed that kibble to my dogs, because it's, it doesn't have all the synthetic vitamins and stuff, it would cost me hundreds of dollars a month just for the kibble. I mean, that's insane. But you have to do that. So I try and, slow my roll and just tell people, hey, add something fresh. I mean, there's so many things that you can add to your dog's diet that will help make them so much healthier. And it's just like, and then slowly build from that. And that's kind of what I did in the beginning. Is I started with raw in the morning and kibble in the evening.
Okay.
And I slowly built until I felt comfortable feeding 100% raw, because at the time I was kind of afraid of the budget of it. And excuse me. But now it's just sort of like, now that I have my sources and I know what I'm doing, it's a lot cheaper, a lot easier. But in the beginning, yeah, it can be super, super terrifying.
Yeah, pretty daunting. And I've even heard like, once you've gone raw, you can never go back to kibble and like all this. I mean, there's just weird superstitious type of stuff that is just nonsense out there.
Yeah.
And you just have to, kind of walk the path yourself and let your dog show you
Yeah.
exactly what's up, but be smart about it as well, and be balanced with, what you introduce in that diet, and do your research. I
Mm-hmm.
always tell people, do not believe a word I say. Even when with the dog, do the research and
Yeah.
make sure that it. Don't take declarative sentences as fact
Yes.
because
Yes.
it's a big problem in this world.
Right. I know, it's like I always remind people, someone will email me. It's like, well, I know you're not a veterinarian, but I trust you. And it's like, yeah, you should have stayed with that first part. Yeah, I know you're not a veterinarian, and then you should go and contact a veterinarian. Because I don't know I mean, my opinion changes from day to day based on what I'm experiencing with my dogs. If, there are things that I believed 4 years ago that I think is, asinine today. And
Yeah.
it's just a matter of the information as it comes through you. So I always tell people, allow yourself room to be fluid, and don't kill yourself. I can end up feeding kibble again. What if I moved to an area where I didn't have these resources? What if I lost my job and I had to be stuck with kibble? I mean, it's like I try not to get on a high horse anymore about being a raw feeder. It's like, yeah, I'm doing something great for my dogs, but it doesn't make me any better than anyone else, because we all love our animals.
That's right. That's right. And by walking that path, you're showing others that it's possible. And when they come up to you and be like, "Hey, man, my dog was is experiencing these problems," if you can say, "Hey, look, my dog was experiencing those problems as well, and
Yeah.
this is how we fixed it," and so you
Yeah.
can share your experiences to help others, and And that's what it's all about, cooperation. Don't be getting on each other, telling them they're doing it wrong. Because, if you come up to other people with your fist clenched, what is that quote? It's one of my favorite quotes, and their fists are going to clench right up. But if you go up with the understanding and wanting to converse and actually get to the bottom of something, maybe you can figure something out.
Yeah, and that's so true. It's like, I think it's one of those things with social media. It's so easy to get all crazy and dramatic and stuff. And even I have to watch myself because I'm usually multitasking. I'm doing a million things at the same time. And I'm at my day job, or I'm doing all these things, and someone will send me a message, and I'll just send them like a 2-word response back just to say, okay, I dealt with that. But then I have to think about, how did that come across on their end? Did it come across as dismissive or short or anything? And even though that wasn't what I intended, what is it? What is it? Oh, I can't remember. There's a really great quote. Something about, I can't remember what it is. My boss always says it, and it drives me crazy when he says it. Perception is reality. Because it drives me crazy when he says it, because I'm always like, if I perceive a 10-foot rabbit in the corner of the room, it doesn't mean it's really there. Stop saying that.
Perception is not reality. Actually, and look at the word solipsism. And solipsism is what I call the biggest lie. And that's exactly what it is, where people believe that perception is reality, where reality is existing beyond our perception.
Yes.
And our perceptions, our percepts come together to form concepts. And so we get a better understanding of the reality that we exist upon.
Oh, that's crazy. You just made my head explode. I have to go in the corner and think on this now.
That's right. I mean,
it's so easy to just, I find it's easier to be nice. It's easier to take the time. And I always remind myself because I'm writing my second book, and it's 101 questions that I get from people. And and I call them, in the book, I call them stupid questions, because people always say, I know this is a stupid question, but and it's just like, it's not a stupid question. It's a question that, maybe we didn't all have it, but most of us had it. It's just that, we didn't all ask it. It's a good question. And if it's a question that's the answers are going to help you feed your dog better, or help you make a better choice for your dog or yourself, then it's a good question. Just ask the question. I mean, even if the answer is, yes, or I don't know. And plus it's helping me write a book, because I need 101 of them. So keep the questions coming.
Yeah. Ask the questions. We need some fuel for the new book here. So Rachel Fusaro says, I was just thinking the same thing, Kim. And Audrey says, tension breeds tension. Absolutely. And I think that it's hard, because we can, when you're watching my face or Kim's face, and we say something, a joke or something funny, then we're going to laugh. And you can see, that grammar is conveyed with our facial gestures, where it's the font. And I think that it's cool with emoticons, and that's where emoticons with like you can LOL, or, a little laughy face or something, that go along with a couple words, that the words by themselves might be interpreted as something a little bit curt or rude. Right. But with that smiley face, and it's like, okay, cool. Then we're totally good.
Exactly. Remember that. It's just one of those things where that's why I walked away from my raw feeding group, is because I spent so much time trying to get people to be nice to each other, and trying to, dial it down for everybody, that I was just like, what I want to do is help people feed their dogs, and I want to share my experience. And when I walked away from that group, it felt like I opened up this whole world of space where I could do that again. And I love it. It's so much fun to, I get emails every day from people that are, new to raw feeding, or, or they're not ready to feed raw, but they do want to do something better. And I enjoy answering every single question, because it's exciting to see so many people waking up in this time and understanding that, the veterinarians are great. Yeah, it's nice that we have this whole, $70 billion industry devoted to our pets, but ultimately we're their advocate, we're their voice, and we need to step up and start speaking up for them as well. And it's just really exciting to see that in all aspects of, raising pets.
Well, I think that there are some conflict of interest that I've seen in the vet industry with hills and pills. That's what I say. Hills and pills, man. That's what I'm always recommended. And it's like, why don't we look at the dog's lifestyle and look at and look at the dog's biology and and I'm feeding kibble. I want to feed raw, especially with my new pups, my smaller pups, and I want to get them going. So what is the first thing that you recommend? And we have a question here too, from Christopher Maldonado. Do any of you two know of a cat or dog that lives vegetarian or vegan lifestyle? No.
Well, not a cat, because cats are obligate carnivores. So a vegetarian or vegan diet for a cat can be deadly. I actually do know that there is a community of people who feed their dogs a vegetarian or vegan diet. Some people do it because of their own morals. And so because they feel that it's wrong to kill animals, and eat their flesh, they don't want their pets to do it either. Some do it because their dog was so allergic to everything, just so highly allergic that the only diet that helped them was a vegetarian or vegan diet. So it's not something that I recommend, because I believe that dogs are facultative carnivores, which means that they can survive on a plant-based diet, but they thrive on a vegetable-based diet. However, there needs to be room for those outliers. So there's the dog Bramble. It's a border collie. I can't remember where Bramble lived, but Bramble, I believe, lived for 24 to 26 years or something like that. However, people use Bramble as proof that, hey, this vegetarian vegan thing for dogs works, and look how long this dog lived. Well, it's not enough to just look at diet when you have a long living pet. You need to look at, what was the gut biome? That's the biggest thing to look for. And this was not a dog that was fed a vegan kibble all their life. This was a dog that was fed a home cooked diet that was plant-based all his life. These plants were grown at home by his owner in very rich, fertile, like where she measured the soil to make sure that it was super fertile. And that was the big thing about it. And however, I believe that, while outliers are inspiring and they give us an idea of what can happen, I think ultimately we need to look at dogs overall. And whenever someone comes to me to say they want to feed a vegan diet, sometimes I get concerned, because usually in my world, because I'm a raw feeder, this is someone who's trying to, poke the beast. And, and I'm just sort of like, I don't want to argue with you about whether or not this is good or bad. I actually interviewed Armighty May, who is a veterinarian out of California, and she is a proponent of vegan diets for dogs. And
Really?
yeah. And so there is something to it, but it's not something that I would recommend, nor is it something that I would do for my dogs. And if someone chooses to do that for whatever reason, this is when I back into, I'm not a veterinarian, I'm not a nutritionist. All I can say is that if this is absolutely what you want to do, please do so with the guidance of a veterinarian that's very much experienced in animal nutrition, because not all veterinarians are experienced in animal nutrition. You really want one that not only knows animal nutrition, but knows how to feed a balanced plant-based diet so that your dog can thrive.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I feel like maybe your dog will be doing great at first, but then you have to think about what's going to happen 3 years down the line and 5 years down the line. There, I'm
Yeah,
off
and
my
you have
high
to.
horse.
Well, and Rachel says, very well said, Kim. And I agree. We need to look at the levels of that dog. We need to see what's going on with that dog's panels. And the only experiences that I've had with the dog that I was on a vegan diet, his kidneys failed, and it was a bad situation, and it
Yeah.
wasn't good. And after a while, he unfortunately had to be put down, and so the lifespan of that animal was shortened because of that diet. And but I don't know, I don't know exactly what they were feeding them
Yeah. I
and
think
whatnot.
it's when it comes to it's funny because it's easy for us to say that someone who wants to feed their dog a vegan or vegetarian diet, that
Yeah,
they're putting their morals on their dog. And that's not everyone. Some people it is, but some people have true concerns, because you were talking about this earlier about how, our factory farming system, they're doing so many horrible things to the animals that are coming through, and while it's impacting us, and you can see it. I look at it as, because I wonder about the fact that we have so many people suffering from anxiety and depression. I mean, things like that, where you have to wonder, the one thing we all have in common is our diet, and our animals are going to feel the impact of that faster, and they already have a shorter life than we have. So I sort of feel like there is something to it. I can understand being concerned, but what I've done is, because I do have that concern, is one, I eat very little meat. I have, I eat mostly a fish actually based diet, and my dogs eat very high quality, local farms, or farms in the Pacific Northwest, where the animals are grass fed, grass finished. They're, humanely slaughtered. I know some people feel really uncomfortable with the term humanely slaughtered. It sounds like an oxymoron. And I understand, but
yes.
But it's one of those where it's the best that we can do. And so that's what I do. My goal is not to support a system that is harming animals, which I think is the factory farming system.
Well, and just to look at the numbers, I mean, we're looking at almost 60 billion animals killed every year, and that doesn't include sea life. Sea life is measured in tons. And if you know not just about the life that they live and how they're produced and they're literally genetically modified to get as big as quickly as possible. They're crammed into these pens, and that's all that they know. And and so to live, or to grow something in a life that all they experience is fear and no real fulfillment or enrichment, and then to consume that as a building block for your own life. And we haven't even taken into consideration the morphogenetic field of influence that is being affected by all these animals impacting this field, and that's a fear response mechanism as well. And but that's a whole other conversation. But it's also I absolutely believe that, if we do choose to eat animals, I would much rather choose to eat an animal that lived a fulfilled life, and that died quickly, and that life was cherished, and gratitude was given for that animal. And that's where we only eat animal that we hunt. So my wife kills it. I call her Killer. I'll cry for like months.
It's so hard. And it's, I get my rabbit from a local family who raise rabbits for meat, and they dispatch them and grind them up and drop them off at my house. And but it's just like, that's how I'm able to get past that. So there is a whole community of vegans and vegetarians that do feed their pets a raw diet. They have a group on Facebook. And so I do understand struggling with the morals of it, because also as raw feeders, we're a little closer to seeing an animal dispatched. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people, if you are part of a raw group, especially one of the hardcore ones, you may have seen, pretty graphic videos or images of animals eating animals, dogs eating animals. And it can be upsetting if it's not something that you're used to. I mean, I used to get emails from people going, that video triggered me, take it down. And I'm like, okay. And it's just sort of like, it's, this is reality. And, not everything comes in a packaged plastic thing on a store shelf. But I get it. And so I think that the next step, and which is something that I feel comfortable with, is stop supporting that system. Just take your money away and give your money to local farmers. I mean, if you must eat a meat diet, which is fine, start hunting, start raising your own meat, or start supporting your local farmers. And that feels a whole lot better, both, morally and physically, to not be putting that crap into your system.
Well, and I think that you will utilize a lot more of that animal and not waste. I see people wasting a lot.
Yes.
And Rachel says that it's like humans. There are some of us who eat junk, and appear to survive, but are living in metabolic and mental distress.
Yes, yes. She's so brilliant because, and that's so very true because I always know I live with anxiety and depression. And whenever I start having an episode, one of the things I do is look back over the past week and see what have I been eating. And if I've been eating out a lot, then, and even though I'm not eating meat, but just if I'm eating out a lot, so I'm taking in a lot more sugar, a lot more sodium, just a lot more stuff that isn't natural, it makes a difference. And, you know, a few years ago, I started my first farm, my first garden, and I had artichokes from the garden. And when I ate them, I was just like, this is what they taste like, you know? And I mean, it's just amazing when you grow your own vegetables, how different they taste than the ones at the store. I mean, it's amazing. And, you know, I don't know. I just think that as a whole, it's funny that it took me feeding my dogs a raw diet and learning about what they need to start thinking about what I was consuming and what I was doing to myself.
Well, I think we're separated from that, you know, and because we have so many conveniences in this world that almost sanitize. I mean, I guess not sanitize, but I guess it does sanitize us from seeing the ugly stuff, you know, that death, confronting the death and looking that death in the eyes and say, you know, even with funeral homes. I mean, even those used to not even be like grocery stores, all this stuff that just supply it. There's like that middleman, that convenience that, you know, kind of does a disservice to humanity because it kind of, I don't know, it's too much of a convenience.
Yeah,
you know,
I know what you mean. Well, it's like what you said a bit about the waste. All of a sudden, it becomes easier to waste food. It's like you bought all this food,
you know?
and you're throwing it away. You know, first of all, there's people who are hungry, but two, that was a life that was dispatched, and you're just throwing it in the trash now. And that's another reason why I really like raw feeding, is because, you know, you do feed the entire animal. I mean, whether you're eating it or your dog is eating it. I mean, I was talking to someone a few days ago and they were talking, oh yeah, one of my readers actually contacted me and told me that she's like, you know, a lot of farms, after they, you know, butchered the animal, there's a whole bunch that just goes in the trash. And what if we started contacting them and said, we'll take that off your hands? And I'm like, you know what, if you can get a group of people together, sign me up. I'm happy to, you know, figure out what can I use? What can I give to my dogs? I wouldn't have been able to do that 5 years ago. I was still skittish and I liked my raw to come happily in a package. But now I'm just sort of like, you know, last summer, I was outside with emu legs with and a mallet and I was wrapping them in towels and just breaking them so that I could fit them into a pressure cooker. And my neighbor, we only have 3 neighbors. Well, you know, we live near each other. We're on 5 acres too. We only have 3 neighbors. And one of the neighbors walked by and he was just like, you look like Dexter. And I was like, I know, right? I mean, I look like a crazy person.
You're like, don't you forget it, Tom.
I know. Like, exactly. Watch yourself. I feed raw.
Well, that's it, you know. And Scott says a good point here. He says, I think every meat eater should dispatch and process an animal, multiplies appreciation exponentially. Yes, I mean, that's it. Yes, Suzanne says, yes, I'm learning so much by helping my dogs eat healthy. Now it's my turn.
Yes, right. Yes, Suzanne. My tagline on my blog used to be, my dogs eat better than I do. And someone told me, you should trademark that. And people were putting it on T-shirts. I think last year at Super Zoo, one company had it on their T-shirt. And when they saw me, they were like, I hope you're okay with me using it. And I'm like, use it away. I was like, that is not what I want. I mean, that's just what happens to be, but that's not the reality I want. I don't want to be proud of the fact that I eat crappy. I mean, you know, yeah, I still think my dogs do eat a really good diet, but now I'm happy to say that I do too. And it's just sort of like, but no, y'all can have it. I didn't make it up.
Well, now you're getting good network of people too, where you're getting the diet and to be like, hey man, you know, the grass fed meat, all that stuff is good for people too.
Yeah.
That says, I've started growing my own herbs. Katrina says, incorporating them in my diet and my dogs. Herbal remedies are awesome. Yes, they are.
Yes, they are. I mean, and it's amazing just the things that you can do. Just, I mean, here, I'm going to show you this. This is like a little plug. I mean, it has nothing to do with diet, but we were all at Super Zoo last week and we found these chews. Someone told me to go buy this
Cocoa
booth before
chew.
I left, and it's cocoa chew. And this is the husk of coconuts.
Cool.
And the story is one of them was on vacation in Hawaii and he noticed dogs running around with coconuts in their mouth. And he asked a veterinarian, it's like, is that safe? And they said, not only is it safe, but whenever they bring in strays, their teeth are super clean. And that gave him an idea. He and his friend did a school, like a college. Their final project in college was to make a business out of that. And now it actually is a business. And I love the idea that, you know, there's all of these adjacent things to raw feeding where people are, you know, thinking about sustainability and they're thinking about, you know.
Dude, this is crazy. Hold on, my cat cruising out here. Oh, here. I don't know. Can you see her with the rabbit?
What does she have?
A rabbit. Can you see that?
Man.
Can you see it? That's wild, dude. Just when we were talking about it, my cat just walked by the window with a rabbit in her mouth, showing us exactly. Could you see it?
She's raw fed. That's crazy.
That was cool. That's it.
Insane.
The universe, my dirty window here too. But I turned my head, and my cat's just sitting right there with the poor bunny. But at least the bunny's dead. Sorry, I got distracted. What were we chatting about?
It's just where we live. I mean, my dogs. I think the rabbits have figured out that our property isn't a safe place for them to be, and they've moved on because I've only seen one rabbit on our property in the past year. But yeah, they will hunt and kill rabbits and eat them.
Oh yeah, no problem. And that's it. And I mean, and it's really cool to see what these dogs were bred for. And that's the other aspect of it is that self-raw. Cool, you guys saw that. That was wild. Yeah. But that's it. You know, let the universe show. Look at this rabbit or look at this cat out here eating raw. You know, and then we bring them into our life, and then we feed them, you know, other things. But they, you know, let them show us what they prefer.
Well, and that's what's so funny is going back to the beginning of, you know, we've taken these animals. Yes, we've domesticated them, and but it's funny because just because they are our pets does not mean that they cease to be animals. And we are taking them in, and then we're trying to feed them a processed diet similar to what we eat, because we eat a processed diet because it's easy, it's convenient, it's
That's exactly
cheap.
It, right there.
But it's just sort
easy,
of like,
convenient, cheap.
You know, it's not. It shouldn't have to be that way. And what's amazing is that, you know, granted, in the beginning when I first started feeding raw, I'll admit it wasn't easy, it wasn't convenient, and it wasn't cheap. But that was because I didn't know what I was doing. But as the community grows and more people are talking about raw feeding and writing about raw feeding, we're having more, you know, resources and leaders that people can reach out to and say, hey, you know, I want to do this. You know, I had someone actually send me an email saying, my dog keeps gaining weight and I don't know what to do. And it's like, you know, there's nothing wrong with my dog. I've been to the vet. The vet says my dog is fine. My dog keeps gaining weight. And it's just sort of like, guess what? I had that exact same thing happen, and I was able to answer that question. And these are questions that people have that it's not a run-of-the-mill question that you're going to see in a raw feeding group. It's not really going to be something you're going to see in a raw feeding book. It's just every dog is different. And so, but as our community grows and we're talking with each other and we're comparing notes and we're saying, hey, you know, this is what's happening. And, you know, out of a group of, you know, I don't know how many thousands of people, someone can raise their hand and go, oh yeah, I had that happen too. This is what I did. And then they could start comparing. It's just amazing just to see that happen and, you know, see more and more people just not only feel comfortable asking the question, but, you know, actually getting a polite and respectful and kind response. And it's changed a lot over the past 5 years. And it's really exciting to see.
Well, I think that we will see it continue to evolve, because if we look at the models that we've had before, even with the veterinarians and stuff, it's a centralized model where the information is centralized to this one person or this one particular institution, where we are experiencing the decentralization of of information, and that's it. Is that we don't need to rely on one specific. We can use each other's experiences, and borrow each other's scars, right? And find out that we're not alone, and that helps out. And we also have to look at maybe conflicts of interest that are paying to be in front of that doctor, right? And there's that to be aware of, where the only thing that matters to me is my dog, and they're going to tell me with their health if they are, and with their behavior, if they're doing good. And people don't realize that a lot of times this food, man, it really can affect behavior. And if you get a dog on really good solid food, I mean, we have a different animal a lot of times.
Yeah. Well, Rodrigo, he's a Border Collie mix. He's Border Collie Great Pyrenees, 50-50. We live right along the Centennial Trail. It's right outside. And as you know, bicycles, joggers, dog walkers all day this time of year. And I would have to take my dog on a completely different part of the property, because I couldn't trust that he wouldn't want to race out to the Centennial Trail. I mean, when he was out there with Johan, he wouldn't do it, but with me, he would race out there. And of course, I would do the brilliant thing that dog trainers tell you not to do, is I'd race after him screaming. And
he's like, I know, let's go.
Exactly. And it was just like, it was driving me nuts. And I finally, spoke with a dog trainer, and he taught me what to do. And I was able to change the behavior in a weekend. And by the end of the month, he just wasn't interested in running out there anymore. And he hasn't run out there since. And this was like 3 years ago. But, in that experience, I started looking back at, like, for instance, I couldn't take him to the dog park because he started getting really aggressive with other dogs. And this is all back when he was fed kibble. And it was just sort of like, he's achy, he's tired. This dog is up in his face. He's just not in the mood to deal with anything. And it just doesn't take long to set him off. And I would think about the times when I'm achy and I'm tired and I'm just not in the mood and people are bothering me. And it's like, what do you want now? And, but it's astounding to me that we don't put two and two together when it comes to our dogs. We don't realize how much we have in common with our animals, that, that they need, they need fulfillment and enrichment. So, like when I got home, I took the dogs out, even though Johan played with them today, I played with them. He changed our property, because we actually used to only have 2.5 usable acres, and we have all 5, but he put ponds on the property, and there's barriers around the ponds, and all of it is so the dogs can have places to swim and places to run up and down and places to explore things. And so we don't have to really go anywhere. It's probably not great for socialization because we're not taking him anywhere. But yeah, it's like I got tired of taking him to places where dogs would, approach us because they were off the leash and stuff. So we decided to make our home our own dog park. But yeah, it's Rodrigo's behavior today. Granted, I'm sure some of it has to do with the fact that he's now 8 years old versus 2 and 3 years old. But yeah, he's just a really great dog. He's just, Sydney, you're a great dog too.
Yes, don't forget about Sydney.
Looking at me. Looking at me. It's like, I'm a good dog.
Do you know what? I had this nephew of mine that was just a little pain in the butt. And he went and got tested, and he had celiac spruce, which was, what is that? The gluten. He couldn't have gluten. And I tell you what, man, when I saw this kid again, after we found out that he couldn't have gluten, it was a different kid.
Yeah.
And to me, that was quite eye-opening, because it was remarkable how, I mean, and I couldn't stand him before, but now I love him. I mean, it was really cool. Thank God.
And what's so sad is that, like 5 years ago, about 5 years ago, someone posted on my Facebook page back when I first started blogging that they switched their dog to this new diet, and it wasn't raw, it was just another kibble, and how their dog's behavior changed. And I was just like, that's not responsible to say, because a dog's behavior is not going to change just because you switch to a kibble. I was so green. I had no business saying anything about anything. I should have just been sharing cat videos and puppy videos back then. I was so wrong on a daily basis.
Well, that's how we learn. I mean, we learn by, doing. It's just, just it takes a little while to realize that you don't know much, right? And you just kind of keep on learning and go with the flow, But Shay says that I'm not the expert. Let the dogs be the expert. And so let the,
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
just a provider of information. That's all I do. These dogs are going to tell you if I'm full of crap or not, right?
So it's so very true, because it's like I will see my dog. You look at the change of behavior, or like when the dogs go to their dish and then they just sort of back away. Or Scout told me that he doesn't like chicken, and I
Okay.
was just like, why isn't he eating this chicken? He would go and he'd smell around and he'd be like, nope, I'm not eating that. And so I stopped feeding him chicken. And what's funny is that if he did eventually eat it, because I was like, no, eat it. He would just eat it. You're fine. He would get diarrhea. And so finally I was just like, okay, I'm going to stop feeding him chicken. And now he will, he won't. I was tried guinea hen, thinking guinea hen a couple of years ago. I thought, this is a good substitute. Now I can get guinea hen. Nope. He went to the dish, smelled it, and stepped away from it. And so I was like, okay, no more guinea hens. He did the same thing with pheasant. And I just trust him.
Just
And it's like,
foul. He doesn't like foul.
he,
He thinks foul is foul.
yep. And it's just like, yeah, but he's a healthy, happy dog.
Yeah. Well, let them show us. Let them. And dogs, they communicate in a world of split seconds. They
Yeah.
communicate with subtle nuances of body gestures, and we have to pick up on that because we communicate. Kimberly and I just sitting here, sit still with our voice, conveying a bunch of ideas, and we can really, hone in on some ideas and just discern and to contemplate and just by sitting here. Where the dog isn't like that. They're going to run and freeze and they're going to show you if they're hesitant about something with their body. And so pay attention to that. That's what the dog is communicating to you 24/7.
Yeah.
It's just up to us if we're going to listen, right?
Yeah. And it's funny because the last year that I fed kibble, my dogs were telling me loud and clear they weren't interested, because I was trying to do so many things to make the kibble more appealing to them. And they were just
Parmesan
like,
cheese,
yeah,
yogurt,
exactly. Doing all
all
these,
the.
and it's just sort of like, and now it's funny because it's like today, if I had known back then, I would have started making bone broth and just soaking their kibble in bone broth, or just adding vegetables. There's so many things I could have been doing. Hi, Sissid.
So that's what you would recommend, as a start, maybe bone broth and.
Yeah, I would. I just, and I know a lot of people believe that, you should just do it. If you're going to feed raw, just wake up one day and feed raw. I actually don't think that. I think if you're hesitant to feed raw, if you are concerned, if you have questions, then honor that. But in the meantime, that doesn't mean that you can't make your dog's diet healthier. And so I do. Bone broth is so easy to make. You can get everything you need at the grocery store. Or like if you cook dinner, turkey dinner for Thanksgiving, save all those bones and dump it into a pressure cooker and make yourself bone broth. Go to the Asian market and pick up a big pack. They have big packets of chicken feet, which makes the best bone broth. So that's going to make it, all that collagen is going to be so great for your dog's joints. And, you can add vegetables. If I were to do it all over again, I would soak it in bone broth. I would, lightly steam vegetables. You don't have to. You can put them in there raw, but I would lightly steam vegetables because I want to feel like I'm cooking, and and throw that in there. Maybe throw some cheese, put a raw egg in there. And there's so many little things that you can do to make, don't put it in addition to the kibble. Actually, if you're going to put a quarter cup of fresh food in there, take away a quarter cup of kibble so you're not making your dog fat. But, those are the type of things you can do. And sometimes, because I think for a lot of people, they want to see, even though they keep hearing about this did this for my dog, this did that, they want to see it for themselves. Yes. So do that and then see what that does for your dog. And then as you want to make changes, and when you're doing this, it also gives you time to like research, what are your sources going to be? What's your budget like? Where are you going to store all this? I have 4 big dogs. So I needed to get a freezer. Well, we're in the same place. So I went down to the appliance recycling outlet and got a freezer down in Snohomish. And so, I have 2 freezers now in the garage, but like if you live in an apartment, you're not going to have a place for an extra freezer. So how are you going to feed your dog this raw diet? Where are you going to store the food? It's cheaper to do DIY. Do you have the space in your kitchen to do DIY, or do you have the time to do DIY? Do you have the sources to be able to pick up everything? Because for me to make it affordable for 4 big dogs, I buy in bulk. So I'm buying hundreds of pounds at a time, and I have the space for it. But if I lived in an apartment, it wouldn't be that easy.
It'd be
So
Dexter, like 10 times 10.
yeah, I know. Is there that mallet breaking them bones?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like those are the
You gotta
type of
think
things
about
that
that
you
stuff.
think about. And and it's sort of like, because people get so anxious to, like, they, once you make the decision to switch, you want to switch. This just allows you to slow it down a little bit. You're doing something healthy, and now you can sort of figure out what you need to do to get everything into place, so that maybe 6 months down the line, you're not like having to go back to kibble because you bit off more than you could chew.
Yeah.
You actually can just take the time, and you're learning. You feel more comfortable with, making sure your dog is getting all the nutrients that your dog needs. You can get those questions answered. You can maybe connect with some people on social media who kind of speak the way you speak. And so you feel comfortable asking them questions and talking to them. I think that all of that community part of it is so very important, because many of us, I mean, again, in the Pacific Northwest, we have veterinarians who are pro-raw, but not everyone has that support. So you're going to need it from the community. And so it gives you the time to find your crew, so that you can feel like, when your veterinarian is like, you're killing your dog, feed them science diet instead. You can go back to your crew and go, ha ha, the veterinarian wants me to feed science diet. And everyone can laugh, and then, you can move on.
Well, there's strength in numbers, and your network is your net worth. That's what you use to add value to your life. And we have some comments here. I've gotten people excited about raw in a kidney disease group that is used to prescription diets.
Yes, that's awesome.
I've seen raw diets reverse liver. This liver enzymes were elevated. I've seen raw diets bring those down to normal levels. I've seen them, a number of different things. I've worked with Miss Vollard, Wendy Vollard, who does an additive, with her food, or that you add to a food. Excuse me. Food is so important for behavioral issues. I run a dog walking company and have had clients switch dogs to raw, and the change is incredible. It really makes a huge difference in some dogs. Also giving dogs RMBs. What's RMBs?
Raw meaty bones.
Raw meaty bones to burn off excess energy.
Yeah, I actually do that. I'm going to be taking some, what is it? I think I have buffalo knuckle bones in the freezer for the dogs. And on the 4th of July in the afternoon, they'll all have a session where they sit and chew on the bones. And not only is it going to clean their teeth, but it satisfies their chew drive. But you see these dogs like go into the zone of, things are happening around them, and they're just like, nope, I'm chewing. Last year, my dogs were chewing the buffalo bones. A coyote came up within 20 feet of them, and they were just into the bones. And I was sitting there and I'm looking at this coyote, and it took me a second to go, oh crap, you're not a dog. You're just like, you're just up here. And the coyote just walked away. But my dogs were so into the bones that they just didn't even notice it.
Wow. But their eyes roll back in the back of their heads. And I mean, that's like the ultimate pleasure for a dog. That's like sex, for dogs.
Love it.
The chew cells, in the dog world.
It's like one of those things where I think, especially with me, I mean, my dogs aren't super active. I mean, they're active dogs, but I feel like we got lucky because we have 3 border collie, mixed dogs. 2 of them are border collie Australian Shepherd mix. One is border collie Australian Shepherd and blue heeler. So
they're all inactive. Wow.
Yeah. Well, they're I say they're normal active dogs. Okay. So we go out, we play fetch, and we walk around the property, and take them for walks, and they're just normal active dogs. It's not like they're not destructive. Like the past 2 days, it was raining and stormy, and they didn't get a whole lot of exercise. They don't become destructive because of that. They just chill out. So we're really lucky about that. But when we do have days like that, especially like the 4th of July coming up, they're going to be anxious. And, I have my Himalayan chews, these huge Himalayan chews and huge bully sticks, and they'll have the raw meaty bones. And They'll be golden.
Rough
Yeah,
life.
exactly.
Well, we live out here in the country, and sometimes the fireworks are pretty intense, man.
Yes,
Shake the whole house.
exactly. Exactly.
Katie also says, and not all dogs need dog parks. Good on Kimberly for listening to what Rodrigo needs.
Oh, thank you, Katie. Yeah, he is not good at dog parks. Yeah, it's just horrible. And well, actually, none of my dogs like dog parks. None of them do. So
The,
it's just
I call
they
dog
love.
parks diseased fight clubs.
That's exactly what it is. My dogs do great on pack walks. They
Yeah.
are fantastic with pack walks because it's sort of like we're all doing something. We all are going in the same direction. We all know what we need to do. They're perfectly behaved dogs on pack walks, but they do not do well with dog parks. And so that's what I do.
Cohesive unit moving together, in one unit, and that's what they like. It's
I saw your video earlier today, walking all those dogs, and I'm just like, what?
the
That's
16
crazy.
dogs.
Yeah, like that is so awesome.
I walked double that.
I mean, that's just astounding to
Double
me.
that. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's just what I do. I've done it since I was a kid, and yeah, that's what I do. That's why I do what I do, is because of the pack walk, moving together as a unit. It's structured. Like, we don't go to off leash parks. We don't let these dogs off leash. We go to a place and we walk together. And when the dogs, go to the bathroom, then everybody waits, and usually we have another dog that needs to go, and then everybody. It's just nice and structured. But they get also to get to see the same dogs over and over, and they develop a camaraderie with that. And so we are a pack. And some of these dogs I've had their whole lives. I've done this since 2007 full time, and it's really cool. It's really cool to see, and to live my dream. The only problem is that these dogs don't live as long as we want them to.
And so, exactly. I mean, but it's so amazing to just see dogs in their element and to appreciate them in their element, because it just gives me so much more respect for the dogs and for what they bring to our lives. And I respect what you do, because it's like, you're teaching the rest of us to just let them be dogs.
Yes.
We can still let them be dogs, but within, some type of control, like having them on a leash instead of letting them run wild. But it's just sort of like, they do so well on a pack walk. And I love that.
Well, I encourage my clients to become the dog, because
what happened? Hey. Your voice went away. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Wild.
I know.
This is so crazy. Okay. The dog walk. Here, let's see what we have here. So true. I've had chronically ill dogs. Was agro, improving nutrition, help him feel better. Went a long way to help his behavior. What I was saying was, I encourage my clients to become the dog.
Yeah.
It's easy for us to overlay our own perceptions on the world, because that's how we perceive the world. And just like what we were talking about, how perception might not be truth necessarily. It's how we're perceiving the situation. But we have to realize that, this animal is not capable of the thought processes that we have. We have parts of our brain that this animal does not have. And so we have many more capabilities with our thought process. And to put this on this animal that isn't capable of, I think, is a disservice to that animal. And what we need to do is back it up and to kind of see the world through their eyes, become the dog by proxy. And then that will help us understand that animal, and understand that this animal's wants and desires are just as important to that animal as our wants and desires are to us. And I tell people I'm kind of like an attorney for this animal. I represent the dog because, I want the best for them, and that's what I've traded my life for. And the dogs have confirmed that I've made a good decision over and over again. I'm working with a reactive cattle dog right now, who we're making a lot of progress. We still have a long way to go, but that's it. It's just working through it, keeping your eye on the big prize, but becoming that dog and understanding, that that process of trust. You know, the dog is going to trust you first, and then it'll trust the situations that you put them in, and then eventually they'll learn to trust themselves, because we are putting them in a human world that we have to
Yes,
remember, right?
exactly.
And there's lots of contraptions that can invoke a fear response that we have to introduce this dog to. This is nothing to be afraid of. This is a bus.
Yeah, exactly.
Or this is a stroller or something like that. So we got a lot of comments. Networking like this helps with that. I'm learning so much. Thank you so much for joining us. Katrina, we love having you here. And everybody, feel free to hit that share button. Get this information out far and wide. We need as many people, to access this information, to improve the life of their dog, so that their dog can live a longer life with them. And then Judy says, I'm not comfortable with DIY yet. So I feed in commercial raw, but I'm learning more and hope to make the switch soon.
Yeah, there's nothing, Judy. That's how I was too. So I started with a hybrid diet. A lot of people have the misconception that I hate kibble, that I'm super anti-kibble. It's like, no, I just write about raw, and my blog is about raw. So I don't write about kibble, but it doesn't mean I'm anti-kibble, because that's where I started. I started with a hybrid. I switched to a pre-made raw, 100%. Then I switched to a base mix, so something that had all the nutrients, and you just had to add the meat. So I did that until I got comfortable and found my resources to do DIY. So I honestly believe that, don't do it if you're not ready. Don't allow anyone to pressure you. Do it at your own pace, because there's so much that we do, in the process of transitioning to a full raw diet, that is making our dogs, diet so much healthier, making them healthier, that, it's okay to take your time. I'd rather people take their time and get it right than people feel pressured and rushed into doing it and then become resentful and just not doing it. And I say that because I nearly didn't start feeding raw. I was just like, it's not worth it, because people were so aggressive and so opinionated. And I finally, someone gave me the advice of, you know what? They don't know your dogs. When it comes to your dog, you're the expert. I'm the expert in 4 specific dogs. So people can give me mounds and mounds of advice. I don't have to take it. I can, just file it away to deal with later. But, do what you think is right for your dogs and what's right for you in your time frame. I mean, yeah, I get excited. So I would love for people to switch to raw right away, because I'm like, yes. But, then I dial it back. Calm down. It's okay.
Like being a little intense. Well, because we're in the emotional arena with the dog. We love these animals, and that emotion transmutes into passion a lot of times, and sometimes it'll transmute to salaciousness.
Yeah, exactly.
With the attacks and stuff. You're like, well, then screw you. Exactly. Christopher says, thank you too for a unique and informative interview. Thank you for joining us, Christopher. My dog hates walking 45 minutes to walk a block. Is it an English bulldog? It sounds like, let me see. The Kim Show. Hey, there you go.
Hey.
Your Kim Show. Dogs live in the moment. That's right. And dogs live in the moment, and living in the moment is very important. All we have now is the now, right? Yeah. And The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle is a good book. I think Oprah was talking about that.
I'm looking down here, because I know I have it somewhere in this house.
I'm sure I got it somewhere too. But he talk about how guilt and regret. How you have to put yourself into the past to feel those feelings, right? And then fear and anxiety. Or you have to project yourself into the future. Something is making you feel that. And so in the now, we release that, and the dogs live in the now, and we can learn so much from them. A lot of people tend to live in their past. A lot of people, project themselves into the future with a lot of.
We worry about we worry about the future, but we stress about the past. And it's just sort of like, we can't control either. So just, the past is done. And it's like, I remember that helped me figure out, that was like the first big lesson I learned as a pet parent was Rodrigo and Sydney, when they were puppies. I treated them like my babies, and I played with them, and I didn't do any training really. I did some training with the trainer, but I didn't really keep up with it because they were cute and they weren't really doing anything, and then all of a sudden
being cute.
Yeah. And then they got big, And the cute things that were cute was puppies weren't so cute when they were big. And it's just like, and I just had these dogs that were insane. I mean, they were just, oh my gosh, it was horrible. There was a time when I wanted to rehome Rodrigo. I mean, it cracks me up. It's like all these things that made my blog would have never happened because I was maybe not going to feed Raw, and then I was going to rehome Rodrigo because he was so bad. He was so bad. And then one day, a dog trainer told me, dogs live in the moment. You can go home today and start fresh. It's not like you have to undo all these things. You just start fresh. And so I went home and started that day of no, we are going to calm down. We are not going to. And that's when I introduced timeout. And I thought that was the dumbest thing in the world. But someone on Facebook told me, a trainer on Facebook told me, just put him in timeout. You don't have to do it long, 15 seconds. And it was amazing because it got to a point where I would look at Rodrigo and it's like, do you need timeout? And he'd be like, okay, no, I'll stop barking.
Amy Jean wanted to know what the name of the book is. And Amy, I just put a link on Amazon. It's The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. Great book. It's a small book, but definitely one to check out and to really, contemplate and to look at how you're living life and how much time you're actually spending in the now. And another really good way to get into the now is go on a hike.
Yes.
Don't take anything with you. Just go on a hike and just look at the trees, listen to the wind, the birds, be present, 100% present.
Yeah.
And then start with that hike and then start to, whatever you do, be 100% present, even if it's washing dishes, if it's cooking, or not cooking, but preparing raw food for your dogs, be present and put gratitude and love into that, and that's what we're here to do, and what we experience life as, and the change that we evoke on this earth, right, is be the change that you seek in this world, and so that's how we do it.
I agree.
Audrey says people seem to forget that dogs need manners too. That's right. Dog parks are pools of no manners and unengaged owners, recipe for disaster. I understand why so many people don't like them. Hopefully people learn to listen to their animals. I've done some seminars at dog parks where if there was somebody there like on site that was really, really good and knew dogs and could help people, and just that's what their job was to help educate the people that come there to help litigate whatever the chance of any fights, or can show people the dog's posturing or different things, then we might have it better. But I call them disease fight clubs. They turn into volatile situations because the dogs, they especially in urban environments, they don't really have that much to run, and they go into this place, and the dogs that go over and over and over again, they form that pack, and any new dog that comes in there could be an intruder and could get ganged up on by the locals, so to speak. So it's easy to remember to whoever made these dog parks had love in their heart, and it's
and there
for
was
people.
There was a time when the dog park was so much fun. I remember we would, Strawberry Fields is where we would go. We'd turn the corner to Strawberry Fields, and it's like Rodrigo knew where we were going. And he would just start barking because it's like, we're going to the dog park. And he even knew the words, you want to go to the dog park. And he would run to the door ready to go. And then it wasn't okay. And it was just sort of like, and what happened was basically we went from a 2-dog family to a 3-dog family. And then that's when it became, he started guarding us, and he still guards me. And, so does Zoe. She guards me as well. She creates a whole perimeter around me, and then she guards that perimeter to keep anyone from coming near me. And it's like, well, this isn't fun. So we're going to go home. And so I just,
Well, they start tasking, to switch that to focus on you and protecting you, right? Instead of having fun and being social and all that stuff too. And, and they're also learning those behaviors are okay by reinforcing those patterns. That's right, Aubrey. Well, and the other thing I wanted to talk about too is you have a blog, and I wanted to show this here. This is the keepthetailwagging.com. And it's a.
Hey, that's it.
So when did you start this? And what's this all about? This looks like we have supplements, raw feeding, raw dog food recipes. We got it all here.
Yes, I try. Yeah, I started my blog in actually December 24th, 2011 is Christmas Eve when I published the first blog post. But it was just, I was writing about litter mates because I have two sets of litter mates. And at the time, people, well, I have them now. Back then I had one set of litter mates and I kept hearing how bad it was to have litter mates. But I was like, my dogs are fine. But I think my dogs were fine because I did work with a trainer, and that was the difference. And so I sort of wanted to write a blog that encouraged people to rescue if they were going to buy a puppy, to work with a reputable breeder, and then that's me and Rodrigo.
That's Rodrigo right there. That's the man.
And then work with a dog trainer, how important it was to work with a dog trainer. And it was Rodrigo's health issues that changed it in 2013 or 2014 to be about, dog nutrition, raw feeding, and raising dogs naturally. Okay. And it's just trying to, and, one thing that I wanted to do is just be a friendly voice, because my experiences in the raw feeding groups just were not positive. And I wanted to be able to tell people, I wanted to tell people, I think on one of my pages, I have, like learn to feed raw without the pressure. And it's just a matter of, I'm not going to tell you what you should do. I'm just going to tell you what I'm doing. And then if you have questions, we can talk about it, but I'm not going to tell you that you have to do what I'm doing, because it's just not fair. Because, not everyone is there. We don't all have the same dog. I just want it to be a positive experience, both for me and for the people who follow me. And I think I've done a good job. I mean, I've gotten a little tangled up in social media drama here and there. It
happens to the best of us,
unfortunately. But I think it's funny because I think all of those experiences were a good thing as well, because they taught me to have a thicker skin. And so now today I can ignore a lot of the silliness that happens, some of the messages I get from people, who get really offended and upset about, I teach a workshop locally. Well, I'm taking the rest of the year off, but I usually do it every few months, do like 2 or 3 workshops. And there is a local veterinarian that complained to the city of Marysville about my dangerous workshops. And it's just like, okay, that's fine. And I remember one year at Seattle Pet Expo, some of the Bainfield vets, called us, me and my friend Katrina did the expo together, and they were calling us, dirty raw feeders and how stupid we were and stuff. And so I just walked around and introduced myself to them and had a great conversation with them. And exactly. And I just want it to be that person rather than being the person who is, judging people for feeding kibble or making people feel stupid because they asked a question about, feeding eggs, or, why can't I feed the shell from the grocery store? I remember you see that in groups where people are like, just read the files. We're tired of answering that question. And it's just like, come on.
Just answer it,
Just answer the question.
Yeah. Well, that's it. You catch more bees with honey than you do with vinegar, right? And that's how people, we love our dogs. We want the best for them. And sometimes we don't know what we don't know, and we seek out, and people are being vulnerable, and they're making themselves vulnerable by asking questions. And sometimes that, can be, if it's met with animosity, not a really good constructive moment for them. Right. Yeah. You might teach them to shut down.
Exactly. And it's just like, I just don't want to contribute to that. I mean, we all have good and bad days, but I just don't want to contribute to that.
There we go. Sorry, my phone just rang. So I just put a link up to your book too, a novice guide to raw feeding for dogs. So you've written a book there. How many books do you have out now?
I have one official book. I've tried to write books in the past, but they didn't turn out too good. This is the first one that I actually really enjoy and like, and I'm working on my second one, which the plan is to have it published at the end of August. So I'm slowly muddling through.
Okay, I'll
It's a
check
little
in with
harder,
you.
right? It's really
Now
hard to
that I
write.
know I live right around the corner from you, we're
I
gonna
know,
hang out. I'm
right?
gonna be like, "Where's that book? Where's that book?"
Exactly. Have you done it yet? Why are you
Yeah.
outside? Shouldn't you be writing a book?
Well, and you're welcome to, because I would love your help on getting my dogs on a raw diet. So let's
Sure.
work on this journey together, and
Absolutely.
I look forward to this. And how do people get a hold of you? What's the best way if they wanted to contact you, Kim?
Facebook. That's the
Okay.
fastest, easiest way to get. I'm on Facebook is either through my Facebook page or through my personal profile. So I may give me 48 hours. I usually do respond right away because I have some weirdness about that where it's like, oh, I got a message. But
Some
I
weirdness.
also I also work a full-time job and I have 4 dogs to raise and a cat that's upstairs and a lot of other stuff going on. So sometimes it may take me a little bit. And that's why I tell people Facebook, because if you email me, I get so many emails a day that sometimes 3 or 4 weeks will go by and I'll notice your email when I'm cleaning up my emails and it's like, I'm sorry. So Facebook.
So Facebook's the best way. And then you have what's the group? Is it just your face or personal
No, I
profile or
know.
which?
Yeah, it's just my Facebook page. I no longer have a raw feeding group. It's just,
Oh,
keep the tail wagging on Facebook and then, my website.
excellent. Well, I'll make sure to share the keep the tail wagging here really quick. And then everybody, thank you for joining us. This has been so much
Yes,
fun.
it
I
was.
look
It was so
forward to
much
having,
fun. Thank you. I love
of
it
course.
talking to like-minded people. It's just like, yes, this is so making sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it. This is, we can discuss just about anything when we come together with, compassion, empathy, with a common goal to help our furry friends, so there's nothing that we can't discuss, I think so.
Yeah, that's what
I
I always do.
appreciate
I
you.
always try to ask myself, whenever someone, it feels like I'm going to have a conflict or anything like that, I always take a step back and remind myself we're all here and we're all so passionate because of the animals that we love. And so take a step back and just say, this person's having a bad day. I had someone recently call one of my dogs fat. He's the most active dog at our house. And he was
Oh
just like,
no.
wow, he's fat. And I just took it. And it's just like, there was no need to bicker. There was no need to be like, how dare you? It's just like, in the grand scheme of things, is this the hill I want to die on? No.
Yeah, choose your battles. Choose your battles
Yes.
wisely. There's some people out there that are just trolls. I mean, there's some people out there that are going to poke the bear, like you said,
Yes,
that
exactly.
they enjoy getting a reaction or getting a rise out of people. And sometimes that's exactly what they want. And just don't give them the satisfaction,
Yeah.
just ignore them. That's,
Yeah, they
you
are in
know,
the minority. The most people in the pet lover world are great people. The people who are going to start it's just the people who start trouble are the loudest ones. And they get the attention because drama is it's just sort of like an accident on the side of the road. It's like, oh, what happened?
yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's it. They're used to being loud and being the center of attention. So it makes sense that they want to be loud and be the center of attention in this forum as well. As Judy says, when are you doing this again? Great discussion. Judy, thanks for joining us. We're going to be doing this again this Friday. I'm going to have Chad Mackin, who is a wonderful dog trainer out of Chicago, ex-president of the International Association of Canine Professionals, and a very knowledgeable man. So join Friday. And I try to do them every week, but life happens, especially in the summertime here when we're so busy, and so we just kind of sit down and do them when our dogs are trolls. My wife just said that. Absolutely, they are. They troll us all day long.
That's awesome.
But with my dogs being trolls, it's hard to get on here, and that's why I appreciate Kimberly. We were talking a while ago about coming on here, and then I just messaged her today. I was like, "Hey, I know that's the last second. Want to do a live thing?" And so I sure do appreciate you doing
what?
this.
Talk about raw feeding and dogs? Okay.
Okay. Yeah. It's like, when do we sign up? And then I get you on the phone or get you on the live and realize that you're right there. You could have been right over here sitting right next to me.
Like, hey, Bill.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly. And hold on real quick. I'm going to say goodbye to you on the flip side in the studio. And everybody else, thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful evening. Go buy Kim's book.
Please.
Go read her blog. And if you are on the fence or have any questions about raw feeding, she is your woman. And thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. And I'll be back live on Friday. And also, I've uploaded all these videos. I need to upload a couple more to the YouTube channel. And so you can pause those videos. There's a lot of things that you can do that you can't do with the Facebook video. So check that out on YouTube as well. And have a wonderful evening. And everybody in America, happy 4th of July to you. Be safe with the fireworks and with the chew circles with your dogs. All right, have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.